All right. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. I'm really thrilled to have our presenter today, who is Anastasia. So I'm going to go ahead and get my little document here going. And just give me 1 second. Okay, cool. So, my name is Carla Amador. I'm the founder of the 52 Hike Challenge. Welcome to the August meeting. And today we have a special guest, Anastasia Allison, who is the founder and creator of Kula Cloth. She is amazing, and I'm so excited to have her for the first time. She's actually speaking to general challengers. She's actually been on other calls with us for our Over 50 Outside program, but I thought it would be super awesome to have her for this challenger meeting and also to be able to share her story with everyone who does the 52 Hike Challenge and watches these videos. So, give me 1 second. Looks like we have someone in the waiting room. Okay. So before we start, though, I did want to thank our sponsors, Oboes and REI. They are awesome. They support all of these meetings and tons of educational content that we provide to you all on a yearly basis. And so if you don't know about Oboes, they are awesome and they provide great footwear. And then REI, you can get all your hiking needs met there and all your hiking gear needs, including the Kula cloth. So check them out. They have a great 1 year return policy and are just so awesome. They give you a 10% back on merchandise that you purchase through them. So we're really thankful to both of these brands for supporting us throughout the year. So, as I mentioned, I have Anastasia Allison on the call today. She's the founder of the Kula Cloth. And if you don't know what the Kula Cloth is, it is a game changer when it comes to leaving no trace outdoors. Ladies, if you've got to go outdoors, I finally became an avid not only user but 52 Hike Challenge has partnered with Anastasia and Kula Cloth to create our very own 52 Hike Challenge edition of the Kula Cloth. The one pictured here is the current edition that we have. But I don't want to talk anymore because Anastasia has such a wonderful presentation, and I'm going to give her the mic so she can talk to you about her story, how she founded Kula Cloth, and she always has little fun surprises up her sleeve. So I'm going to shut up and move on and let Anastasia talk now. Thank you, Anastasia, for being with us.
Yeah, thanks everybody for having me here today. And I already told Carla I can't have the dramatic virtual background because I have a lot of hygiene props to show you. And when I put a virtual background up, it makes my hands disappear and it'll just look like I'm holding nothing. So, as Carla mentioned, I'm the founder of Kula Cloth. I was not always the founder of Kula Cloth. I'm a former park ranger and backpacking instructor who then got laid off from my job as a park ranger, ended up getting a job as a railroad police officer, was still teaching backpacking, and really had a dream of doing something in the outdoor industry, but I had no idea how to do it, how to even get started. Like, how do you go from where you feel very, very stuck to someplace that feels like you need some lucky code to figure that out? And I had a near death experience in 2017 that was really early 2017 on the way home from a snowshoeing trip with my mom and my husband. Um, and driving home, our car that I was driving hit a patch of black ice, spun across Highway 2 into the path of an oncoming semi truck. And obviously, happy ending to that story. Here I am today. But that one specific incident became this catalyst for me because I recognized that in that very strange and surreal moment of spinning across a highway, I didn't have any fear. It felt weird, but I didn't have any fear. And I got home, um, and looked at my life and all the ways in which I was fearful about pursuing the things that excited me the most. And I wondered if I was the one manufacturing those fears in my mind. Because if I wasn't fearful in a moment of looking at my own mortality, what was I afraid of? And I couldn't answer that question, but I knew that the things that I was afraid of were preventing me from going after that career in the outdoor industry that I wanted. And I started chipping away at little ideas that I had. I started an online hiking group. I started teaching online backpacking classes. And about a year prior to this incident, I had been on a backpacking trip with my husband where I was taking photographs of my pea cloth, which at the time looked something like this. It was just an old rag that I used. And I set it up on my trekking pole. I was taking this stunning sunset shot of my pea cloth in the Wind River Range as a joke to send to a friend. And it was like this little lightning bolt of inspiration popped into my mind and said, why isn't that a real piece of gear? I went home from that trip and talked myself out of it very quickly. Basically, all the things that I didn't know how to do. And after that near death incident, about a year later, it was like the idea came back to me. And I remember thinking, what do I have to be afraid of? Like, literally, what is the worst that could happen? My pea cloth fails. And so I started taking little steps, and I actually brought a little prop. This is the first Kula cloth that I ever attempted to sew, is this little piece of fabric, which does not look like a square. And of course, the product that we see now, this is a collaboration that we've recently done with the Washington's National Parks Fund, which is the nonprofit that supports the three largest national parks in Washington state. So to be able to work with them and give back and support parks and work with people like Carla and support these programs that change people's lives now. I mean, when I think about what would be different in my life and other people's lives, had I said no to pursuing that idea, it's sort of shocking to think about that now because so many wonderful things have come from really saying yes to myself, which started with this. And it doesn't look perfect in the beginning. And that's the same with hiking. And so tonight I'm going to at the end, you're more than welcome to ask me any questions about Kula or starting a business, anything you want. I'll answer anything. But I also want to talk a little bit about backcountry hygiene and why it's so important to me because this is really what got me into even having an interest in starting a pea cloth company. As a backpacking instructor, I taught hygiene to folks. And one of the reasons why it was so important to me is that when I went on my very first backpacking trip many, many years ago, there was a man leading that trip. And before the trip, I did not have the heart or the comfortableness, the comfort to ask him, what do I do about peeing and pooping outside? This was a older man, much older compared to me. And he also very apparently did not feel comfortable asking his female participants, hey, or even knowing how to direct us to resources to help me learn about what I needed to do to prepare to handle my hygiene on this trip. And so I went on my first backpacking trip and I did not bring toilet paper. And I thought that there was going to be a toilet. I mean, looking back on it now, I don't really know what was going through my mind, but I just think I thought, like, oh, yeah, there'll be a pit toilet up there. I'll be fine. Well, I very quickly realized my mistake as I was sort of perched high up on the side of Mount Baker that there were indeed no toilets up there. And I quickly needed to figure out what to do. And I've told this story many times, and it's always kind of embarrassing to me to tell it, but I literally stole toilet paper from my tent mate. And when I say stole it, I don't mean like figuratively. I mean, I waited until she was out of the tent, and then I went into her bag, stole the toilet paper, and then spent most of this 2-night trip worrying about whether or not I was going to have to poop or pee because, was I going to have to steal more? Was there enough for both of us? Was she going to notice like that some of her toilet paper was missing? And it was a very distracting experience. And I know for a fact that none of us, none of you go out into the backcountry or on a hike because you want to sit around and think about your toilet paper situation. Nobody's like, oh, I can't wait to go out there and worry about my hygiene. People, but something like hygiene can literally alter the course of your trip unless you are not only empowered to handle your own hygiene, but also have enough knowledge that you are empowering yourself as a leader to potentially address the concerns of other folks in your group who might not feel comfortable asking questions. And I've found that hygiene is all about asking questions. If you are going on a backpacking trip with other people, just asking, hey, what's everybody doing about their hygiene? Do you need me to point you in the direction of some resources? And just opening that question up to folks, you will be stunned to find the things that they will say to you. Oh, well, I didn't even, I've been told before, I've been dehydrating myself on hikes because I didn't want to have to pee. Now just imagine going out there and intentionally dehydrating yourself on a hike. So for me, when I think about hygiene, it is more of a broad spectrum uh, aspect of the backpacking trip that really makes such a massive difference, not only for you, but also for members of your group if you're not backpacking alone. So I'm going to just go over a couple we're going to go over like peeing, pooping, and periods and just talk about best practices for each of those so that hopefully, even if some of it is a refresher for you, you'll feel a little bit more confident the next time you hit the trail and more comfortable, especially the next time maybe you talk about this with somebody else. So peeing, very easy. And that's the other one thing I'll quickly say is whenever I teach backpacking or hiking to folks, I always tell everybody, you aren't doing anything out there that you don't know how to do. It's walking, eating, breathing, drinking, sleeping, and I missed one. I think maybe I said eating. it's all the things that we know how to do. We just have to tweak them a little bit to make sure that we're comfortable. So when you are out in the backcountry, 200 feet or more away from natural water sources is where you want to pee on durable surfaces if possible. That means not on a meadow, not on alpine flora. Sometimes the most durable surface is the trail itself. There is this like instinctual thing that we want to get off the trail. And I want to challenge folks that like the trail might be the most durable surface and the best place to actually pee. Now, it might not be the most private depending on where you are, but I'll give you a couple options for that in a few minutes. The only exception to this 200 feet away from water rule is in places like the Grand Canyon, for instance, where there is a super high water volume. Also, the last time I went to Zion in the Narrows, they were actually having people pee in the water itself and not on the very delicate alpine flora. So Kersey, the reason is because when you pee on vegetation, critters like deer and goats are attracted to that, and they will often nibble, eat, and or destroy things that they would not normally consume because the salt from your urine is there. If you're ever camping in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, for instance, and you pee, very shortly, sometimes afterwards, you will see mountain goats like coming up, and they will be like licking the ground or nibbling on anything that you've peed on. So if you have the option of peeing on a granite slab or rocks, yeah, the most barren surface is great. The trail itself, dirt, not on meadows or plants, that's definitely the best place to go. So You can just squat to pee like normal. I'll give you a couple other options if you have some maybe mobility issues with your knees as well. If you need to balance for any reason, if that's possibly an issue for you, you can always use your trekking poles as sort of to hold on to. Sometimes you can hold on to a single trekking pole or two poles, or if there's a tree nearby and you want to squat down and have some support, you could even hold on to a tree if you needed to. Otherwise, squat down. Now, there's a couple options for how to actually handle your peeing. Drip drying is sort of the option that I don't recommend, although some people do it. And I want to preface this by saying you do what works for you. I'm not here to sell anybody a Kula cloth. I want you to listen to all the options and choose what is the best for you personally. And that's always what I recommend to everybody. You will have a better experience. If the idea of using a pea cloth sounds gross to you, don't do it. Just try things out and see what works. Now, drip dry, no matter how hard you shake or twerk, you are not going to be able to get yourself completely dry. And that's why something like toilet paper or a pee cloth is helpful, is because there always will be like those pesky pee drops that stay in there. What happens then is that your underwear becomes a de facto pee cloth, which over the course of a day might be tolerable, although if you have to pee a couple times, it gets kind of nasty. But over the course of a multi-day backpacking trip, if you are consistently drip drying, you're really setting yourself up for chafing, for possible UTIs or yeast infections, because now you're keeping the entire area in your underwear very moist. It's already sweaty. We don't need to add pee drops into the mix. Like it just starts to get pretty nasty. Option two is using a pea cloth. So you can use something like just a microfiber towel or a bandana or a piece of a t-shirt that you hang on your backpack. You can use something like a Kula cloth. To use any type of a pea cloth, what you will do is you squat to pee like normal, and then you are going to take either one of these, and instead of wiping from front to back, you're just going to sort of pat dry or almost hold it in place so that it's more absorbing the moisture, and you'll kind of be able to feel when you've dried off a little bit. Then all you do is just clip it back to your backpack. If it can be in the sun, that's preferable. That'll help to like sterilize it a little bit with like UV rays. The Kula is antimicrobial. You can also buy antimicrobial rags that helps out a little bit. The Kula you can snap closed so that it doesn't touch your backpack once you've used it. With the other cloth, I just recommend trying to remember which side you've used. But basically with these, you just snap it back to your backpack and you use it again and again throughout the day. When you go to clean your pea cloth, now if you are just out on a day hike, take it home. You could throw it in your wash or wash it out in the sink, no problem. But if you are on a backpacking trip, it's very important that you also use that same 200-foot rule and the durable surface rule to clean your pea cloth. So you take your water bottle, and I use a little dropper bottle of Bronner soap, and I walk 200 feet or more away from water sources over a durable surface, and I will just dry, rinse, and agitate my Kula or my pea cloth, rinse it off, and then bring it back to camp to hang it up to dry. If it is damp out and you're like, what do I do with this thing? It's now wet. It's not going to dry overnight. With your clean pea cloth, you can wring it out as much as possible, slip it into your long underwear at night while you are sleeping. It'll be clammy for about a second, but lay it directly onto your skin while you sleep at night. This also works with damp socks and gloves, by the way. When you wake up in the morning, it will be completely dry. It's like a miracle personal dryer is coolest tip. So that's how you use a pea cloth. It's super simple and easy to use and not nearly as gross as it sounds. I was so grossed out the first time I ever heard anybody mention a pea cloth. I was like, ew, you're going to use that thing over and over again? That's disgusting. and it's like a total game changer. The final option, of course, is toilet paper. And some people might be more comfortable with using toilet paper. Disadvantage is if you are going on a lengthy trip and you also want to use toilet paper for not just your pooping, but also your peeing. Now you're hauling in and out a lot of it because what we aren't doing is discarding the toilet paper on the ground. That's what inspired me to create Kula was I saw all this toilet paper all over these beautiful places. And I thought, man, there just has to be a better way than that. So my toilet paper kit is super simple. It's basically just toilet paper, and I will bring as much as I think I need. You can tell this isn't a lot because this is probably just for an overnight trip, and I'm only ever using toilet paper for pooping. I also bring a little baggie of wet wipes with me, and I'll get into that in a few moments. But I bring a little baggie of wet wipes with me, and then most importantly of all, I bring an empty bag that becomes a trash bag for my used toilet paper. Now, if there is a backcountry privy out there, like a toilet, it's totally fine. You can throw your toilet paper in the toilet. Fine. But if you are just peeing alongside of the trail or on the trail or something like that, toilet paper does not stay. It can take 1 to 3 years for toilet paper to biodegrade. And in alpine or desert environments, that could be even longer. This also goes for the toilet paper that they oddly enough sell, I think, at REI, and it says like biodegradable toilet paper. Well, technically everything is biodegradable, except maybe styrofoam. The question really is like, how long does it take to biodegrade? It's not, most things given the right amount of time and heat, they're probably going to biodegrade, but how long will it take? And not only that, it's just not pleasant. I've been to a campsite in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness at Jade Lake. Stunning, like turquoise blue lake, come around a little corner, and somebody had just left this like gigantic heap of toilet paper, and I ended up packing it out, which was sort of disgusting in its own right. But even more disgusting is the fact that like it was just left there and probably would have been there for another couple years. So I briefly mentioned that if you have some mobility issues or also are concerned about privacy while peeing, that there are a couple other options. One option is using something like this. This is called a pee style. There's also a brand that I really like called the Freshette, which has sort of a tube that pulls out of it. You can insert these into your pants and pee without having to take your pants off. And you can also stand while you're peeing as well. So if you're wearing a climbing harness for any reason, these are a great thing to have. The one thing I will recommend with something like a pee style or a freshette is do not let the first time you use this be on the backpacking trip. Practice, do a little dry, well, not a dry run, maybe a wet run in your shower with this thing first. Do not do what I did, which was take it with me to climb Mount Rainier, and at 13,000 feet in a windstorm on the side of the Emmons Glacier, decide to whip this out and try it, and then just literally just get blasted in the face and all over myself by my own urine. So don't do that. Just practice at home. Do me a favor. There's also a brand out there. I'll just type I'll type the name into the chat really quick. They make Nara. They make a pair of pants that has a zipper in the crotch. That you can actually unzip your pants and then you sort of squat down to pee like normal and you sort of spread the pant zipper open and you kind of pull your underwear to the side and you can actually pee with your pants on. They also make shorts, but if you're just wearing like a pair of running shorts, you can do the same thing. If you're wearing just like a lightweight pair of hiking shorts, and you squat to pee, you can just pull your underwear to the side and pee out the bottom of your shorts. Again, I might recommend practicing that too. So that covered the pee funnel and the pee pants. And now we get to move on to pooping, which is always something fun to talk about on a Wednesday evening. So for pooping, I use the exact same toilet kit that I already showed you. Again, I am bringing a specific amount based on how much that I know I will probably need over the course of however long my trip is. I also bring wet wipes with me. If you are a weight conscious backpacker, you can dry these out before your trip. So just lay them out of their little plastic container that they come in that keeps them moist. And then when you go to use them, you can use your water bottle to sort of rehydrate them. The only reason for that is that it keeps them lighter as you're hiking in instead of carrying around wet wipes all the time. But that's just a totally personal preference. I absolutely would not recommend going on a backpacking trip without some sort of wet way to clean yourself off. Um, Especially if you are out long enough where you are pooping, the risk of chafing, if you are not using a wet wipe or something like this, which is a travel bidet. This one's called the Kulo Clean, but there's so many new ones out there. There's one called the Holy Hiker Bidet. Garage Grown Gear has a ton of these like ultralight travel bidets. And the travel bidets are pretty slick. I don't use them in cold weather because obviously that would be a little brisk. But you just attach them to the top of a water bottle and then you can use them like to squirt yourself off after you go to the bathroom. But I would highly recommend having some sort of way plan to handle your butt hygiene as you're out on your backcountry trip, or it can cause some pretty severe discomfort out there. Another product that I have found, I'm not affiliated with these folks at all. These are called packed wipes. And these actually they're dried and they come in this little tablet. It kind of reminds me of those little sponges. Maybe I'm dating myself here, but they used to come in those pill capsules and you'd put them in the bathtub and then it would be a dinosaur. That's what this is like, but it's a wet wipe. So that just gets you thinking about, okay, I've got to poop. How am I going to clean myself so that I can continue to enjoy my backpacking trip and not end up with some serious chafing or a UTI? Remember, you only have one or two pairs of underwear probably. So it is really important that we are keeping all of the nether regions as clean as possible. And when you are pooping and peeing in the backcountry and you don't have access to a shower, this is even more important. I mentioned only bringing one or two pairs of underwear. If I'm going on an overnight trip, I will probably just have the one pair of underwear that I'm wearing, and I'll just do a really good job of cleaning myself. If I'm going for any more than 2 to 3 days, I bring a second pair, and then I just start washing and rotating them, and really focusing my washing on like the crotch and the butt area of the underwear, just to make sure that I have a clean pair that I'm constantly putting on every day. Again, when you're washing off your underwear, we're doing that the same way, just like washing a pea cloth, where we're taking it away from water sources, rinsing it off with our soap, and letting it dry. So to poop, obviously we all know how to, but the question out in the backcountry becomes, well, where to? If you find yourself at a spot with a backcountry privy, awesome. You have a toilet, so you can just use that, which is great. There are places, and I'll mention this because we have one member of our group who is going to the Enchantments this weekend, which is an amazing spot in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness. But there are some places where they will have these backcountry privies out there. And when you get into the backcountry, you might see these little signs for toilets. In some places, if you have to pee only, they prefer actually that you just pee on a durable surface versus pooping into one of those boxes. And the reason for this is that those boxes are often helicoptered in and out. So if you only have to pee and now you're just filling this box up with pee, it very quickly takes up all the space in the box. Now, if you have to poop, definitely use the box if it's there. And if you also pee while you were pooping, totally fine. Everybody does that too. So if you have a toilet, great, use that. Now, if you don't have a toilet, now you have to start thinking about what to do with your poop then. And this is a little trowel. In general, when you have to poop and there's no privy available to you, you want to be able to poop in a hole that is 6 to 8 inches deep. That's a lot harder to dig than it sounds. A 6 to 8 inch deep hole is not easy, and especially not when you have to poop. Like sometimes the dehydrated meal hits really hard, and now you are just sort of like frantically digging, and it's the hardest dirt you've ever felt in your life. And you've picked a spot that's all rock. Never fails. So I want to give you all a tip that has saved me many times. And I really think if more people knew this, it would save all of us from finding piles of poop all over the ground. Because I can only imagine that this is what happened to these folks is that they had to poop and they're like, oops, well, that's it. I didn't have time to dig the hole. The statute of limitations on digging that hole does not end the second the poop hits the ground. So if you have to poop because it's just coming and you can't stop it and you don't have time to dig a hole, by all means, relieve your gut, poop on the ground, and now relax, take a deep breath, and now dig the hole. You can take your time because you no longer have to rush anymore. Dig a hole, and then you can use rocks, you can use a stick, whatever you need to like shove the poop into the hole and now bury it. Your toilet paper is getting packed out with you. I always pack out all my dirty toilet paper. If you are concerned about the idea, and also this is totally normal because I was when I first started backpacking, I did not like the idea of walking back into camp with this visible, dirty, poopy toilet paper now showing. If that does not bother you, then that's totally fine. But just a little hint is you can take some duct tape and wrap it around this bag and make it opaque. And that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable about packing out your dirty toilet paper. The last option that I will mention with pooping is a situation where you might have to do something called blue bagging it. This is the least pleasing option for most folks because the idea of packing out our own poop kind of sounds gross. But there are places where it is required. Canyonlands National Park, there's places up high on glaciers, and when you are snow camping. Because digging a hole 6 to 8 inches down in the snow does not count as burying your poop. As much as I would love for it to count, because that's the easiest hole ever, you're like, oh, I'm done. That does not count. So if you are in a situation where you will have to use a blue bag, you will likely have been told this by a park ranger at a visitor center, and they will likely give you blue bags to bring out into the backcountry. If you're snow camping, it might be on you just to know that and to handle this yourself. But you can use a bag of, this is just dog bags. And then I would bring an extra Ziploc bag, a quart freezer bag, probably double bag it. And then I usually line my entire, oh yeah, somebody's asking. I do not attach my poop bag hanging outside my pack. So what I do is I line my entire pack with a trash bag, day pack or backpacking pack. So it doesn't matter either way. And then what I will do is I will have the poop in the poop bag, double bagged in 2 different Ziplocs, and I will usually put it in the bottom of my backpack, which is also protected by another trash bag. So there is literally no possible way, unless some sort of cataclysmic explosion happened that I can't possibly fathom, there is no possible way that all of those bags could burst and fail. So the bag is lined just with one trash bag. So my backpack itself has one trash bag in it, and then I would put the poop bag underneath of that. And the poop bag itself is, I'll try to explain this. It's this, which would have the poop in it. And then I put this into another Ziploc bag. So you've got multiple Ziploc bags and you will not have any problems. It's not nearly as disgusting as it sounds. Again, far less disgusting than just finding human poop all over the place. When I climbed Mount Rainier the first time, I think we got, 12,000 feet or 13,000 feet up on the Emmons Glacier, just, stunning. And then there you're hiking up and there's just somebody's poop laying there. And that would have been so easily remedied by somebody having a bag. So not as bad as you think it will be. There's places in Washington State, that's where I'm from, like Mount Adams. This is really cute. They actually provide for you when you climb Mount Adams and you go to get your permit, they actually give you a piece of paper with a bullseye on it. And you actually poop on this bullseye and then put it into this little bag and you carry it out with you. And it's not nearly as bad as you think it will be. So I will talk finally just about handling our periods. And then if anybody has any questions, they can ask. So periods, the biggest thing with periods, and this also goes for anybody, I'm not sure exactly where people are in their life stages in this group. So you might still have your period, you might not still have your period, but you might be hiking with people who do. And so that's why I always feel like this is important information to have. One thing I always recommend is even if your period is not due and you are going on a backpacking trip, do not go on a backpacking trip without, at the very minimum, packing some supplies for your period. When you go out into the backcountry, you're putting different stress on your body, you're eating different things, you're exposing yourself to like being hyper aware, like stuff changes. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten emails from people and they're like, you won't believe this. I had to use my Kula cloth as a pad for an entire 7 days. So don't, my first recommendation is always take something with you. I personally use a menstrual cup. I will never go on a backpack. Even if I just had my period, I would never go on a backpacking trip without bringing that with me just in case. So just bring something. And number two thing I recommend with periods is that no matter how you choose to do this, especially with regards to like a menstrual cup or a disc, backpacking should not be the first time you ever use that. That is something that you need to have practiced, work out some of the little like bugs in using a menstrual cup or a disc to make sure that you have a solid understanding of like how it fits in your body because everybody is so physically different. It actually took me 3 or 4 times to find the right cup size with a menstrual cup that did not leak. I had problems with some of them just based on like the shape of my body. And like the discs absolutely did not work for me at all. So just make sure that you figure that out. Don't be like, oh, Anastasia said using a menstrual cup is the best way to go. And then just bring it with you on your first backpacking trip and expect it to go well. Definitely practice at home for a couple months first. So if you are not using a menstrual cup, tampons or pads is the way that you will go, most likely. Tampons and pads have to be packed in with you and also out with you. They do not biodegrade. They do not go into the ground. They do not go into backcountry privies. They come out with you. And the way that you can do that in a responsible manner for the backcountry, and I see the period panty question, so I'll answer that next, is using something like this is an OPSAC, OP, odor proof sack, and sack is spelled SAK. So if you have used tampons or pads, I always put them in an odor proof sack. And then if you are staying overnight, this needs to be stored away from your tent with your bear canister or with your food. It's not in the tent with you because it does have an odor, and we want to keep that with things that have an odor that are away from our campsite. So that's really important. And then packing it out. The other option I already mentioned to you was using something like a menstrual cup, again, practicing. And handling menstrual blood is exactly the same as handling poop. So if you are at a toilet, it goes into the toilet. If you are cleaning it, it's done over the toilet. If you are not at a toilet and you are digging a hole, then you are dumping the blood into a hole. You're not just dumping menstrual blood onto the ground. You're digging a cat hole for it, and then you are washing your menstrual cup over that cat hole away 200 feet or more away from natural water sources. If you are snow camping, same thing as poop. Remember when we were snow camping with poop, we packed it out. Snow camping, if you are having your period and you are using a menstrual cup, you need to come prepared with some sort of a leak-proof container so that you can dump the menstrual blood into the container, a leak-proof, odor-proof container, something like that, and then haul that back out with you. It's definitely a little bit more work, but what I've discovered over years of doing this, I mean, I've backpacked with my period many, many times. It's a little bit more effort because you've got to like wash everything and fiddle with a water bottle and your little bottle of soap. But using the cup for me allows me to enjoy the backpacking trip for most of the day and really only think about changing it in the mornings and in the evenings. And I saw the period panties. Yeah, Thinx has period underwear. You could definitely do that. I would test the period underwear beforehand, just so that you know, like, how many pairs do you need per day? And then you also have the consideration of making sure you have enough pairs and then washing them and then storing them away from your campsite at night. So I think it'd be totally possible. It's probably going to be a little bit heavier because I actually have a pair of the Thinx sleep shorts, and they're great. But if you are carrying multiple pairs of period underwear, just know how many pairs you're going to need and get into a good rhythm of washing them, because you probably don't want to be hauling around sort of these heavy soaked period blood underwear the whole time. It'll be a little bit more work, definitely, with the period underwear. The last thing I'll add is that when I was a kid, my parents took me to Glacier National Park, and I remember going into the bathroom in Glacier National Park, and there was a sign that says, "Oh, grizzly bears, they're going to come after you if you're having your period." And I just remember being terrified. I'm like, wow, that is wild. And, this rumor about bears being attracted not to the smell of like used tampons or period blood, but being attracted to the actual human who was menstruating, was this rumor that was unfortunately spread for many, many years. And it was based on an incident at Glacier National Park. I think it was back in the 70s or the 80s, where the park hotel itself was actually feeding the bears as a tourist attraction so people would eat at this restaurant and they would watch the bears eating all the garbage outside. Well, unknowingly, some backpackers camped in the path of these bears and tragically were killed by one of these bears. They had gotten very aggressive about this path to the food. And this was far before the park was doing any animal management. One of the individuals in this group was having their period, and that is where this rumor started. The attack had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the person was having their period, because what they didn't also note was that this person's male partner, who was not having a period, was also killed. So that is the origin of that rumor. If you are somebody who ever heard that, as I did in the park when I was a kid, and I want to let you know that as long as you are burying your menstrual blood, as long as you are properly securing your tampons or pads or other used items like that away from your campsite with your food, there is nothing for you to worry about existing as a person having their period in the backcountry. No bear is gonna I've backpacked so many times in bear country with my period, and have yet to be chased down. So that is my whole spiel about hygiene. I know I chucked a ton of information at all of you. So if anybody has questions about that or about anything else, I'm happy to answer literally anything.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. As always,
Yeah.
super informative. And I will let you answer questions. I see they're coming in, but I did want to share. Um, I know I have my fancy monitor on right now, my background, but I wanted to share this, my poop bag, which I'm super proud of. And you know how you were saying earlier, you can line your trash bag. So I just want to show you what I have in mind. It's like a little, they're called ditty sacks. You just get them at REI. And I have everything that Anastasia basically showed you in here. I have my trash bag for my trash. I have, right now, I have a really big piece of toilet paper in there.
You
I have
mean
my cooler.
business out there, Carla.
You never know. You can never be too prepared. Hey, worst case scenario, you get a period on the trails,
Oh
you're good.
yeah, Carla's got a whole roll.
This is the shovel I use. This one's called the
That's
Deuce.
the
So it's
deuce.
the ultra lightweight one. And then sometimes I put hand sanitizer, or I do the wet wipes like Anastasia said, because it just depends on if I want to feel extra safe. But this way, when I carry out my poop bag, no one can see it. So
Yeah.
there's no stress. It's like, hey, I'm cool now. I've got my poop bag. And then I also wanted to share one resource. There is a video that we created for those people who are new to the outdoors. If you're going to be somewhere where there's grizzly bears, we did a presentation with a guide that actually works in Yellowstone. And I don't remember somewhere in that little recap, it'll say what minute he teaches you how to use bear spray. Really, really important to know how to use it before you get out there, and practice before, like there's a certain, like you want to shoot, like I think it's 10 feet from the bear, it's 20 feet, whatever it is. Don't quote me on that, by the way. Look at the video. It's really informative. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you answer questions, and then I do have some final notes before we end today.
Yeah. So I just saw one other question about storing period products. So when I don't have two bear cans. I just have either one bear can, or if it's required, or I also use an Ursack, which is a bear-proof bag. So if I am in an area where a bear canister is required, I will have a bear canister. Otherwise, I do not like carrying bear canisters because they're heavy and bulky and annoying to carry. In those cases, I will use a product called an Ursack, and I'll write that. Ursack is a bear-proof bag. It's made of kind of this Kevlar-ish material. And so after I use and like I said, I don't personally use the tampons or pads, but after any of you were to use a tampon or a pad, you would put the dirty ones in I would probably use like a Ziploc bag that could be a trash bag, because these op sacks are reusable. So I mean, you could wash it, but I don't know if I would want to get it really dirty. These are a more expensive product because they're meant to be used over and over again. So what I would do is I put my used tampon or pad into some sort of a trash bag. Then I would put that trash bag into this bag. And now I would seal it up. And at night, when I'm about to go to bed, I will do one of two things. I will either lock up my bear canister and go put it someplace away from my campsite, or I will go over to where I've hung my bear wire if I'm doing that. And there's a good video out there. If you look up the PCT method, I think it's the Appalachian Trail Conservancy has a really good video showing how to do the PCT method of the bear, and it's an op sack, the bear hang. And then I will put this in my bear hang and go sort of hoist my bag up into a tree. So I don't have two bear canisters. It's just basically period products in a trash bag in the op sack and then putting that where I'm storing my food. The last thing I'll say about bears and the bear spray, because Carla brought it up, you can purchase if you are somebody who wants to carry pepper spray. I actually had to go through a training in this back when I was a park ranger. You can purchase for very inexpensive an inert canister of bear spray. So there's no oleoresin capsicum, which is the pepper spray. There's no pepper in it. It's just the propellant. And you can buy that so that you can practice what it feels like to rip off that tab and to do this. And let me tell you, it is harder to press that button than you think it is. And unless you've pressed it, I would highly recommend using a training with an inert canister because, again, you do not want the first time you ever try to figure out how to get that tab off to be with a bear like looking at you. So definitely get your hands on an inert canister. They're only like $9 usually. They're really cheap and you can practice and you will feel so much more confident out on the trail knowing like, hey, if something does happen and I need to do this, I've done it before. Like my fingers know the drill. Yeah, I hope that that is helpful. And if anybody else has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Anastasia.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate
Thanks for
that. And
having me.
I agree with what you just said. I mean, I think it would be so important to practice beforehand and use one of those test canisters. And you'll see the video, he talks about that in there. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen and then Anastasia can answer anything else. I just wanted to let you know of a couple of quick little reminders. And first things first is because you're on the call today, you get to get a preview of our finisher shirts that just came out and those are available now on our website. So if you have completed this year's challenge, you can go check that out now. Also, it will be emailed to most of you tomorrow in our newsletter that's going out announcing that. I wanted to let you all know that we are officially on for the O Patagonia trek. So if you're interested, we already started getting our bookings. And as of now, myself and leader Sherry from, I believe, Iowa or Ohio. Sorry, I'm misquoting where right now, but we're planning on leading that. We did Kilimanjaro last year or this year in February. It was such an amazing experience. The group even got together in Colorado a few weeks ago. That's how tight the group has, turned out to be. And it was just such an incredible time. So Patagonia, O-Trek, you can go on our website to learn more. If you're interested, you can also shoot me an email and we can talk a little bit more. And our next meeting is happening September, Wednesday, the 4th at 5 o'clock. And our guests, so great, are Leave No Trace. And they're going to be talking all about Leave No Trace and the principles and everything that Anastasia was talking about, which is how do we, handle pee and poop, and they have all the answers. So let's see. It sounds like, do we have any other questions? Oh, a question that's a little more technical. What percentage of backpackers actually have had to use the spray? I don't have that kind of information statistically speaking. I do know that if you are in places like Montana or Wyoming where you're in a national park, they do recommend you carry it for grizzly bears. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't have the details on like the
I
usage.
don't
It's
either,
just
Carla, but
yeah.
I agree with you. Like I hike in black bear country all the time. I never carry
Yes.
bear spray. When I'm in
Yes.
Montana, I do carry it.
Yes, same. And I've encountered many brown and black bears, I want to say. I've never had any reason to be fearful. I mean, I know what to do, right? Like that's one of the things we teach at 52 is always know before you go. Know what kind of animals you're going to encounter. Some of the best websites, we actually just published a blog on our website. If you go to www.52hikechallenge.com, look at our blogs. It talks about animal encounters and what to do. It's going to have links to, for example, the national parks is a great resource. And they talk about what to do if you're around black bears or grizzly bears and the differences. So know before you go is one of the best things you can do to prevent, and to understand like what kind of flora and fauna am I going to encounter beforehand. So um for the most part, I find that animals, they don't want anything to do with us for the most part, like I said. So it's just understanding, like if I did encounter, understand even the thumb rule that leave no trace is going to talk about next meeting that we have is really important. It's like if you can't cover the animal with your thumb, you're too close. So usually they're just going to go on about their life and they don't want to eat you, they're more like they actually tend to run away is what I found when I've seen them. So but knowing what to do, and then yes, if you are going to go to a place like Wyoming or Montana, understand how to use the bear spray. You can rent it. Sometimes you can even go to the hotel if you're staying at the hotel and ask, hey, did anyone leave bear spray that I could, borrow? But I would also be aware of that, just because you don't know if it's been used. And someone did mention that in a meeting recently, like, hey, people leave bear spray because you can't travel with it a lot of times if you're flying. So they were just saying like, hey, sometimes the hotels have extra spray because people couldn't take it. But again, be aware of that. And please watch that video because he really goes into detail on how to not only carry it safely, but also store it. Because he was talking about how that bear spray could potentially, have a leak or something, and you don't want to deal with that. So he'll go into detail in that video. And then it looks like Anastasia wrote a note that she's, pretty good with not having any problems, and she just makes sure to store her food properly. And yes, awesome. All right, everyone. It is officially time. Thank you so much for being with us on our call today. Thank you, Anastasia, so much,
My
and really
pleasure. Thanks,
appreciate
Carla.
this. You're welcome. And we will share this video on YouTube sometime next week with the community. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you always have access and you can go back and review all this information. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all in our next meeting. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.